Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the live lecture of functional analysis. In the last lecture, we have seen an important theorem named as any two n-dimensional norm spaces over the same scalar field are topologically isomorphic. To show these two fields are topologically isomorphic, we were going to consider one mapping from X to Y, and our aim is to show the mapping is 1, 1 on 2, and its mapping P and P inverse both are continuous. Also, instead of showing directly any two spaces X and Y are topologically isomorphic, okay, we were going to show that this space, one of the space X is isomorphic to K, and similarly, the another space can be proved to be isomorphic to K. If it is X isomorphic to K, K and isomorphic to Y, one can easily check that X will be isomorphic to Y. To just show that X is isomorphic to K, we have defined one norm on this Kn space. Kn space is actually a field of scalars, n-tuple scalars, and this norm is being defined, which is actually a distance formula, right? Now, so for the mapping P is defined from Kn to X, where the norms are defined as norm and norm X, and the mapping we have defined is P of X is summation zeta I eta I. Then we have checked out the mapping is bijective, then it is linear also we have proved, and we have proved P is continuous also. After this, the steps are somewhat easy. By proving T inverse is continuous, knowing it is linear, it is sufficient for me to prove that T inverse is bounded. Okay. To prove that this T inverse is bounded, we were going to take the help of another mapping, that T1. Here is the structure we have discussed. So T1 is a composition of norm X and T. T1 is composition of norm X and T. Norm X and T both are continuous, hence T1 continuous. And we were going to consider one compact subset of the domain space. And mapping is continuous will give us the image is also compact. Therefore, this T1S is compact. Compact means it is bounded, closed and bounded as well. Therefore, this T1S becomes the bounded subset. As it is bounded, its suprema, infima both exist. Therefore, let me start with the infima. Small m with the infima we were considering, and we have proved that this M lies between 0 and norm X of Px. And just we have checked out, is it possible to take the Wandler theorem as 0? Then we have discussed the case for m equal to 0, and we have shown that m equals to 0 is not possible, because it is giving us the contradiction, right? No. What contradiction it is giving us? Norm X is 0. But as norm X naught is 0, but as X naught is in S, its norm value should be exactly 1. Therefore, M is greater than 0. Therefore, this kind of inequality we have in our hand. But this kind of inequality is true for the elements of S only. S is the bounded subset, rather a unit sphere we have considered from the domain. Then to make this statement is true for all the elements of the given space, what one can do, if I start with an arbitrary vector, non-zero vector x in K, and if I divide by its norm, it becomes a unit vector. So just we have used this trick to replace this x by x upon norm x, and so that we have obtained the relation m norm of x is less than or equals to norm x of P of x, which proves that T1 T inverse is bounded, implies T inverse is continuous. Hence, Kn and x are topologically isomorphic. Similarly, Kn and y are topologically isomorphic. It implies x and y are topologically isomorphic. I hope you have given the revision for the proof. Okay? Any difficulty with the proof again? If you have, you can ask.
No, ma'am.
Now let us prove the next theorem. The next theorem is very important. It is proving, or it is telling us that all norms defined in the finite dimensional space are equivalent. We don't know what kind of norm it is, but we know simply this norm is defined on a finite dimensional space, and we have to prove that all norms, all possible norms defined on finite dimensional space are equivalent. Right? Now, what is the condition to check the two norms are equivalent? Yes? What is the condition to check the norms are equivalent? Students, what kind of inequality we were proving?
M into norm 1 of x less or equal to norm norm 2 of x less than or equal to capital M into norm of
x. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let me prove this kind of inequality now. We wanted to prove all norms are equivalent. Therefore, what I am doing in the proof itself, see, I am going to start with one particular norm defined on the space. And let me define this to be some norm of 0. This I am going to define. Okay. Some particular definition I am going to give. This is a particular norm, fixed norm I am going to define. And we were going to prove that this fixed norm is equivalent to an arbitrary norm. See what I am saying? This is fixed norm, or we were going to define it. And this is any arbitrary norm. This is any arbitrary norm. Then what the job is? You just prove that this fixed norm, norm 0, is equivalent to arbitrary norm. Okay. Now whatever is the norm, it is equivalent to norm 0. Correct now? Say some norm 1, norm 2, or like this are the norms defined on the corresponding space. And now with this statement, I am going to say all these norms are equivalent to norm 0, right? If all the norms are equivalent to norm 0, may I say the norms are equivalent to one another as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, right now, see for example, if I am writing norm 0 is equivalent to norm 1, similarly I am writing norm 0 is equivalent to norm 2, whether it implies norm 1 is equivalent to norm 2?
Yes, ma'am, because norm is equivalent.
Yes, that's why this is fixed, no, and it is equivalent to all the norms. Therefore, one can claim all norms on finite dimensional space are equivalent. Is the idea clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, therefore, let us start defining with what is norm 0 of fixed norm, and let us take an arbitrary norm x, and we were going to verify this kind of inequality. Okay, let me start. As it is given that the space is finite dimensional, let me start with n dimensional space. Okay, let capital N be a finite dimensional normed linear space with dimensions n. Now, if I am writing dimension n, what is the meaning? The basis contains
n elements.
n elements, and let me write the basis. Some x1, x2 to xn be a basis for n. If it is a basis for n, how can I write an arbitrary element x in n?
Linear combinations of x1.
For any x in n. Okay. May I say there exist unique scalars?
Yes, ma'am.
Unique scalars say alpha 1, alpha 2 up to alpha n, such that. What such that? X is written as alpha 1 x1, alpha 2 x2, and so on up to alpha n xn, and let me call it a statement number. Okay. Now, using this structure of an arbitrary element of the non-linear space n, we were going to define a norm 0 on this. Here we can write, we can easily verify. Actually, we were not going to verify the condition. We were going to verify it orally only. We were not going to include it in the proof. Okay. Therefore, I am writing, we can easily verify that norm 0 of x defined to be maximum among mod alpha i's, where this I lies between 1 to n. Okay. What is the norm defined is whatever these scalars are used in the linear combination to represent the given vector, whichever is your maximum value, maximum modulus value of the scalar, that can be taken as the norm value of the given vector. This is what the norm defined is. Okay. And here we were writing, it can be easily verified that this is a norm on capital N. Let us verify how it is the norm. Whether this norm 0 satisfies the first condition, norm 0 of x is greater or equal by 0. Actually,
yes, ma'am.
Defined as maximum among mod alpha is. What is the nature of mod alpha is? Non-negative, no?
Yes, ma'am.
First condition verified, right? What's the second condition? Norm 0 of x is equal to, implies and implied by x equal to 0. Check out. If norm 0 of x I am defining maximum among the modulus value of the scalars. If the maximum modulus value of the scalar is 0, what about the remaining mod alpha is?
0.
Yes, see what I'm writing here is maximum of mod alpha 1, mod alpha 2, up to mod alpha n. Okay, this maximum is 0. Okay, what about each value? Because each and every value is greater or equal by 0, no?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
may I say each value is 0, which implies
Yes.
alpha 1, alpha 2, all those alpha n's are 0. If all those alpha n's are 0, what is x? Alpha 1 xi, alpha I xi, is it 0?
Yes, ma'am.
All these steps are implies and implied by, therefore you can say that second condition is also verified. What about the third condition? Non-zero of x plus y. Suppose alpha I as scalars for that is x, I am writing summation alpha I xi, and say I am writing y as summation beta I xi, right? Then what about the norm here? This is maximum mod alpha I plus beta I, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I separate it over with less equal inequality? This is maximum mod alpha I plus mod beta I. Again, can I separate it? Maximum mod alpha I added with maximum mod beta I, right now? And maximum mod alpha I is non-zero of x. Maximum beta I is non-zero of y. Third also verified. What about fourth one? Lambda scalar I will use because alpha we have used, no? Lambda x I am using. Non-zero of lambda x. What is the definition? Summation. May I say it is lambda alpha now into x.
Yes, ma'am.
If you just take this lambda out, okay. And what is the definition for non-zero? Sorry, this is a definition, no, for the representation of lambda x. How can I represent lambda x? Summation lambda alpha I xi. What is the definition then? Maxima mod lambda alpha I. Correct? Take this lambda out because it is independent of I. If this is mod of lambda into maximum mod of alpha. So may I say fourth condition is also verified.
Yes, ma'am.
If thus easily one can verify this is the norm, no need to include these four properties in the proof. Proof is already lengthy. Okay. Because what we were writing a statement, we can easily verify that non-zero of x is a norm on it. Any difficulty with the four conditions?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Good. Now this norm I have given by equation number 2. Now here we can call this as a zeroth norm, and we are going to consider an arbitrary norm on n, and we will prove the two are equivalent. Here I will write, we call this norm as zeroth norm. Zeroth norm, and we shall show that this norm is we shall show that any other norm on capital N is equivalent to this norm. Is it okay? To prove this is equivalent, okay? What we were proving then actually claim. What is my claim? Non-zero is equivalent to this norm. Actually proving this equivalent means our aim is to find two constants, small m and capital M, rather positive m and m, such that m non-zero of x less than or equals to norm of x less than or equals to capital M into norm 0 of x. Okay, and it is true for all x in n. Let me call it as statement number 3. This 3 is the aim, okay, claim. This is my aim to show. Now let me go stepwise. In step 1, we were going to prove the right part of this inequality. So let me start with an arbitrary element of n. Consider for any x in n. What x in n I am going to consider? If I consider x in n, this is summation I from 1 to n lambda I xi, right? Right now, x we have written initially by equation number 1 as a linear combination of the basis vectors, right? Now let me consider an arbitrary norm on both the sides. Okay, this is the arbitrary norm I am considering on the right side as well. I equals to 1 to n. This is the norm we have already. People, let me use a triangular inequality. What is the effect of the triangular inequality if I use it?
Less equal.
Yes, it becomes less equal. Summation I equals to 1 to n norm of lambda I xi. Right? Using triangular inequality of this arbitrary norm, right? Now let me use the fourth property also. Lambdas are the scalars. These are the scalars, no? Lambdas, I think alphas we have written, no? In one.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Alpha.
Yes. Let me change it to alpha. It's a matter of symbol only. This is alpha xi. This is alpha xi. This is also alpha I xi. Is that okay? Now, if I take these scalars out of the modulus norm, we will get it with the modulus, right? Can I write
Yes, ma'am.
equals to 1 to n mod of alpha I into norm of xi using what property I can say? Or scalar multiplication property. Using scalar multiplication property of this norm, arbitrary norm I have used. Okay. Now, I want to introduce anyhow norm 0 because our aim is to show the right part of this inequality, less equal by norm 0 of x into some scalar, right? Now, for this, what I will do, every alpha I, mod alpha I used here, I will replace with maximum mod alpha. What I'm going to do, check simply. Say these are my scalars, alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha I up to alpha n. Okay. Every scalar in this summation, I am replacing by maximum mod alpha. Then what is the relation? Is it less equal? Alpha 1 into maximum mod alpha. Alpha 2 into maximum mod alpha, right? No?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Or you can assume like this. What can I assume like this? Some alpha 10 is maximum value. Alpha 10 is the maximum. Then whatever is this summation mod alpha I norm into norm is as it is actually norm xi. Each alpha I am going to replace mod alpha into norm of x1. Okay, mod alpha 2 norm of x2, so on, mod alpha n norm of xn. Okay, each value I am going to replace with the maximum value of alphas, right? Therefore, may I say, suppose if alpha 10 is the maximum, I am assuming mod alpha 10 is maximum. I am going to replace everyone with mod alpha 10. Can I do this?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is the effect on the inequality? Already we have inequality less equal. Therefore, may I say inequality will be continued.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then I think I can take mod alpha 10 out. And V remains with summation norm of xi. Okay. And what is this? This is maximum among mod alphas. Right now. But what is maximum mod alpha? This is our original definition, no? Norm 0 definition, right? Maximum mod alpha. Okay. So let me continue the proof. I am going to write directly. This is my left hand side norm of x. Now I am going to replace, take this, I am going to replace every alpha by its maximum value. Therefore, we were going to get a relation directly. as maximum mod alpha I 1 less equal by I less equal by n into summation norm of xi. Yes, any difficulty with this? If you are, you can ask me. No?
No, ma'am.
Okay. If I may say this is my zeroth norm. Norm 0 of x into summation norm of xi. I running from 1 to n. Now, whenever we have a norm defined on any xi, what is the value? Scalar, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Norm is a scalar value. What about summation of scalars? This is also scalar.
Scalar.
We call this as a fixed scalar, m norm 0 of x, and here m I am going to write summation norm of xi I equals to 1 to n. Hence we have proved the right part of this inequality number 3, right now? Norm x we have proved less equal by norm 0 of x. What remains to prove? Left part of the inequality, right? Now in step 2, we were going to verify the left part of the inequality. Left part of the inequality. What is the left part of the inequality? Small m norm 0 of x is less than or equals to norm of x, right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me call this as number 4. Okay, let us come to this one. Actually, while proving the right part, on the right, we are familiar with the definition of norm 0. We know exactly what the definition is. But if I wanted to go for this, as we were not aware about what norm is, what is the definition of this norm, we don't know. Therefore, to prove this one will be somewhat difficult for us, rather, you can say. Okay, for this, we were going to make use of mathematical induction. We were going to use mathematical induction on n. N is the dimension of the given linear space. Is that okay? Let me start with, we use mathematical induction. Mathematical induction on n I am taking means what? We were going to prove the result for one-dimensional space, then two-dimensional space, then induction hypothesis we will make for any dimension, say n minus 1, and we will prove it for n, right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Mathematical induction on n. Okay. Now here also let me make some steps. Star I will write for every step. Okay. Let me go for n equal to 1 first. Okay. Therefore, what should I consider? Consider the case of one-dimensional space, right now? One-dimensional space. Let me write the basis also with basis. What will be a basis? Say singleton x1.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then how can I write any vector? Yes.
I'll find the x1.
Yes. Any vector is uniquely written as, I will take alpha 1, okay? Alpha 1 x1. Okay. Hence, let me start with its norm value. Norm of x is equal to, is it norm alpha 1 x1? Mod alpha 1 into norm of x1. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now we have to focus on this mod alpha 1. Is this mod is nothing but norm 0 of x. Why? Because
maximum is only,
yeah, we have only one scalar and itself will be maximum. Is norm 0 of x by the definition is maximum mod alpha I, and here we have only one value mod alpha 1. So this is mod alpha 1 itself, no? Okay. But this is my non-zero value and I'm going to keep this as a scalar. Norm of any vector is the scalar, right? Therefore, what I'm going to write here is take small m equal to norm of x1. Norm of x1. Therefore, what is the effect on the statement? Norm x equal to m into norm 0 of x. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And what about this m? Non-negative again, right? So we have proved this, right now? M norm of x is less than or equal. Here we have obtained equality. Therefore, may I say hence LHS of 3 is verified or is true for
Yes, ma'am.
one dimension case. For one dimension space. Okay, that is the result is true for. The result is true for n equal to 1, which implies norm 0 is equivalent to arbitrary norm, right now? Because if the left hand side is, we have proved, right is already true, no? Right hand side is already true for a general norm. Therefore, we can say the two norms are equivalent for one dimensional space. Okay. Now let me make my induction hypothesis. What is my induction hypothesis? The result is true for n minus 1.
n minus 1 dimension.
N minus 1 dimension. Yes. What can I write? Now suppose that the theorem is true for all subspaces of dimension less than or equal to n. Less than or equals to n. Okay. Now one space I'm going to assume say L. Let L be the space spanned by n minus 1 dimension I want to construct. If this is the space spanned by the set say x1, x2 to xn minus 1 only, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Because this is the space with dimension n minus 1 I am going to consider, right? Therefore, I can say, what I can say for this norm, for this dimension space, these two norms are equivalent. Correct? Norm 0 is equivalent to norm. Now, what is the next step actually? To show that the theorem is true for any arbitrary space with n dimensions. Okay? But we cannot go for directly. Before that, our aim is to show that L is a closed subspace of N. L is closed subspace of N. Will it be a subspace of N or no? N is the space with dimension N. N is the space
Yes, ma'am.
with dimension N minus. So it is a subspace and our aim is to show it is closed. Right? To show it is closed, may I say it is sufficient to show it is complete? Complete subspace.
Yes, ma'am.
Space is closed. Right now. But I can write it is enough to prove. It is enough to prove L is complete. L is complete. Reason: every complete subspace of non-linear spaces closed.
Close.
Now, if I want to show it is complete, I should start with one Cauchy sequence and one has to show it is convergent in the same space. Let me start with some YR be a Cauchy sequence. Cauchy sequence in L with respect to this norm. Arbitrary norm, na? Okay. And what we have on this space, both the norms are equivalent. Norm is equivalent to norm 0. Therefore, if it is Cauchy with respect to this norm, One of the results we have seen that is Cauchy with respect to its equivalent norm as well. Therefore, may I
Yes, ma'am.
guys, YR is Cauchy with respect to norm 0 also. Why norm 0? Because we know the definition for norm 0 and we don't know the definition for this arbitrary norm. Okay. Then let us start by considering this with respect to norm 0. Okay. But before that, let me write the sequence, ith coordinate of the sequence. What is the ith element? Yi will be the ith element. How can we write this ith element? Actually, this is the element of I, no. Sorry, L, no. Space L. Space L is of dimension n minus 1. Therefore, I am going to write the ith coordinate of the sequence yi, okay, as. Actually, the scalars used are alpha 1, alpha 2, but make it specifically for yi, I will write the notation alpha 1 I, okay, x1, alpha 2 I, x2, continue up to, is it alpha n minus 1 I
Yes, ma'am.
into xn minus 1? Why? Because it is an element of L. Okay. And what about these alpha 1s are then? Again, let me write where alpha 1 I, alpha 2 I, till alpha n minus 1 I are uniquely determined scalars. Uniquely determined scalars. Right? No? With respect to the basis also you can write. With respect to the basis. With respect to which basis? x1, x2 to xn minus. Okay. Now since the sequence is Cauchy, may I write by definition of Cauchy sequence? Yes, what is the definition of Cauchy sequence? Norm of non-zero of some yr minus ys tends to 0 as non-zero I wanted to write. As Rs tends to infinity. Okay? Getting me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Rs tends to infinity. This will give us, this will say that this will tend to 0. But what is the definition of non-zero? This is maximum.
Maximum of
Now what is the ith coordinate of this subtraction? You have to tell me. Maximum mod of. Instead of ith, shall I write kth one? Because I will have
yes,
here. Okay, what is the range for your k? 1 to n minus 1 now. What is the kth coordinate here? Kth coordinate of r. Is it
alpha k r.
r? Is everyone okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Where it is
Alpha k, yes.
Yes. And this tends to 0 as Rs tends to infinity. Right now? Now check again. Maximum value of this non-negative term is tending to 0. What about each value?
0.
Yes, it is 0.
Tends
Therefore,
to
this implies mod alpha k r, alpha k, yes, tends to 0 as Rs tends to infinity. Okay, let me call this as number 5 and let me call it as number 6. Okay, for each k equals to 1 to n minus 1. Right now, looking at this statement number 6, can I say the sequence of scalars alpha k of r? This is the sequence of scalars, no? Over whatever the field given. This is Cauchy.
yes, ma'am.
This implies see this sequence of scalars over which two spaces? Either R or C is Cauchy. But we already know both the spaces are complete. Therefore, what can I say about the complete convergence? This sequence is a convergent sequence. Right now? Cauchy is convergent if it is complete. Results
Yes, ma'am.
are or C are complete. Okay, let me write the limit point of the sequence. Here I can write hence alpha k r converges to some alpha k as r tends to infinity, and for each k equals to 1 to n minus 1. Okay, now look at this, what kind of situation we have obtained. This, the ith coordinate of the sequence yi, we have written like this, where we have shown that this kind of sequence alpha 1I, alpha 2I is now convergent. Converges to what? This converges to alpha 1. This converges to alpha 2, right? Now let me write here. Okay. Let me write what is yr. We have for yi now. This is alpha 1I x1, alpha 2I x2, so on, alpha n I, alpha 1I x, alpha n minus 1, x n minus 1. Now we have written each of this sequence converges to alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha n minus 1. Therefore, by using coordinate wise convergence concept, may I say it converges to like this.
Yes, ma'am.
And let me call it as some y. And hence yi will converge to y, or whatever the term I am writing, yr, yk, is converging to y. Okay? Therefore, alpha kr converges to x, alpha kr converges to alpha k. Then let me define an element y as summation k equals to 1 to n minus 1 alpha k x k. Right now, then may I say y also belongs to L?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then I write directly yr converges to y with respect to norm 0 as r tends to infinity. This coordinate wise convergence concept was used simply. Instead of I, let me write r here. Therefore, may I say this yr converges to y? Coordinate wise convergence concept is used. Okay, so this converges with respect to norm 0, but norm 0 and arbitrary norm are equivalent on this space. Right now, on L is n dimension, n minus 1 dimension space. You should not forget, right? Therefore, may I say yr converges to y with respect to arbitrary norm?
Yes, ma'am.
R tends to infinity. So what can I say about the space L then? We simplify the n minus 1 dimension subspace or space L is complete subspace of capital N. If it is complete, it is closed as well. Okay? This implies the space L is closed subspace of capital N. Okay, then how many points we have proved till now? Under induction hypothesis, the result is true for n minus 1 dimension subspace, and this L is complete, that is closed subspace of a non-linear space N. Now let me make use of this closeness property to show the main result. Any difficulty up to this?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now what I'm going to consider. Now let me just tell you some symbolically so that you can have an idea. Okay. This is the, suppose this is the space L. This is the space L. How many dimensions it has? N minus 1 dimensions it has. Therefore, the number of elements in the basis are some x1, x2 to xn minus 1. Surely xn is not the member of L. Right? If what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a translation of this linear space L by the vector xn. That is, we were going to find out a new subspace xn plus L, say. Right now, L to xn plus L. How it was being translated? Adding xn to
x1 plus xn,
every
x2 plus
element of L. Right now, L to xn plus L. If L is closed, what do you think the nature of this one? May I say it is closed as well? Xn plus L is closed as well, right? What about L to xn plus L? Is it an isometry also?
yes ma'am.
Why it is an isometry? Suppose I am taking two elements here and whatever is the distance calculated,
Distance is preserved.
yeah, distance is being preserved. Therefore, whatever this transformation we have taken L to xn plus L is a is an isometry. Xn plus L is closed. What about xn plus L complement then? Complement I am taking. Is it open?
Open.
Right? Okay. Now what is the job? To show that this 0 belongs to xn plus L complement. Now to show this 0 belongs to xn plus L complement, what I am going to show is, that is I am going to show 0 doesn't belongs to xn plus L. Is that okay?
Yes ma'am.
Okay. This we will do. Okay. Step by step I am telling you the construction. Once I finish the proof, I will tell you the whole construction again. Okay. Now let me do this much. What I am going to do now is, now if xn is nth basis vector, xn is nth basis vector. See how, what is the reason I forgot? Why we were adding xn to L? Because if xn is the nth basis vector which is not present in L, if I add it in this basis space, the new element will be xn plus L and this will be an n-dimensional space. This will be an n-dimensional space. Let us prove all the points step by step. So this be an nth basis vector. Consider the set which say xn plus L. What kind of elements it will have? Xn plus Z. Z belongs to L. That is, xn is added to every element of the space L. Okay? Provided xn not equal to 0. Because if we add 0 vector, what's the use, no? It will be the original space. Correct? Okay? Next, therefore I can say the mapping xn or z to xn plus z from L to xn plus L is an isometry. Is an isometry since. Let us find why. Let me consider any two elements in xn plus L. What is the nature of any two elements in xn plus L? Say y, z are the two elements in L I am considering. Then in xn plus L we have xn plus y subtracted with xn plus z. Now what is the distance? Xn gets cancelled. This is norm of y minus z. Okay. But I have written directly this is an isometry. Hence, since L is closed, the set xn plus L is also closed because it is an isometry, na? It is going to change the position simply. It is shifted to a new position. It doesn't affect the closeness property. Correct? If it is closed,
Yes,
I'm going to write its complement. It's a complement. Xn plus L complement is open. Right? Complement is open. If complement is open, now the next step I will follow to prove that I wanted to show actually 0 belongs to this complement. For this, we were going to show 0 doesn't belongs to xn plus L. Okay. Now to prove 0 doesn't belong to xn plus n, let me suppose it belongs to. Suppose that 0 belongs to xn plus n. If 0 belongs to xn plus n, how can I write? As a linear combination, no. Xn plus. What is the nature of element in this L? Linear combination of the scalars x1 to xn minus 1. Therefore, let me use the scalar, say beta 1 x1, beta 2 x2, beta n minus 1 x n minus 1. Look at this right hand side. When this will be equal to 0? One
When
possible
all scalars are 0.
0. If I keep all scalars as 0. And xn must be 0. Then only we will get this as equal to 0. Right now? Now, xn we have assumed to be non-zero. Right now? Xn we have assumed to be non-zero. Therefore, though we keep all the scalar values 0, whether you will get this as equal to 0?
No, ma'am.
No. What can I say? This is which is impossible since what is the reason? Xn is not
Non-zero.
right now. So we have we have shown this 0 belongs to xn plus l is not possible. Hence, can I say 0 belongs to xn plus l complement? But the complement is open. What is the meaning of open set? So this is some xn plus l complement. Instead of showing like this, what I will do is, what I will do is, I consider one space, big space, capital N. Somewhere here it will be say L, and somewhere here it will be in structure I do know. Somewhere here it is be xn plus L. Correct? Then what is the region xn plus L? Complement. This remaining region, right now? Outside xn plus L. Correct now? Green region is xl plus L complement. Now we were saying this 0 belongs to xn plus L complement. Therefore, may I say there is a small unit sphere around this 0. Correct? Open na? This element should be an interior point.
Yes, ma'am.
It should be an interior point, and let me assume the radius of this sphere be some Cn. Radius I am going to assume some Cn. Therefore, can I write, since xn plus L is complement, since xn plus L complement is open, there must be a constant, rather positive constant, there must be some radius Cn greater than 0, such that S of 0 centered with 0 radius Cn, what kind of elements it will be? Elements x such that norm of x is strictly less than by Cn. Okay. Is wholly contained in which space it will be?
N.
No, this is xn plus L complement. If you say in N, there is a possibility that it is in xn plus
Xn plus N. Yes, ma'am.
Here it is, we were saying it is xn plus L complement. Okay. Yes? Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Then what about the element x I can say? If x I can take in xn plus n, let arbitrary element x be in xn plus L. Okay. If it is in xn plus L, here it is somewhere. May I say this value norm x is greater than Cn?
Yes, ma'am.
Is in greater than Cn. Right now, it will not be in the sphere because sphere is in the complement. If I take x as an element in xn plus L, it will not be in the complement. Hence, it will not be in the sphere also. Therefore, may I say if x belongs to xn plus L implies norm x is greater equal by Cn. X lies in the exterior of Cn, right? Okay. Now norm x greater equal by norm x greater equal by Cn. Now let me write a scalar combination, linear combination for this vector x. How we were writing? Alpha 1 x1, alpha 2 x2 plus alpha n minus 1 xn minus 1 as an element of L added with xn. This is greater equal by Cn. Let me call it as equation number 7. Okay? Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Alpha is our scalars, no? Alpha is our scalars. Now, look at this. Alpha 1, alpha 2, up to. Here we don't have any scalar. Therefore, I now cannot say directly that it will be a linear combination spanned by these vectors. For this, what I will do, I will take 1 alpha n non-zero and I will replace every vector by alpha upon alpha n. So what I am doing now, if alpha n not equals to 0 be any scalar, okay, then replacing every alpha I by alpha n in 7 we have. What we will have? Just we wanted to adjust some alpha n here, no? So that I can say it will be a space spanned by n vectors x1 to xn. Just to make the adjustment. So what I will do then? Norm of alpha 1 upon alpha n x1 added with alpha 2 upon alpha n x2, so on, alpha n minus 1 upon alpha n x n minus 1 added with xn, and it is greater equal by Cn. Okay. Now let us take this alpha n multiply by alpha n throughout. What kind of inequality we will have? This mod alpha n can be taken out of the norm also, na? Out of the norm with modulus. Therefore, can I write here it is alpha 1 x1, alpha 2 x2, alpha n minus 1 xn minus 1 added with alpha n xn. I am cross multiplied by alpha n and taken it out. And whatever this 1 upon mod alpha n is taken on outside the norm, I am shifting this to the right side. So this is mod alpha n into Cn. Okay. Now look at this inequality very carefully. Actually, we have started with the basis elements to be x1 to xn minus 1, and we have added xn to the basis. So that's why on the right we have mod alpha n into Cn. Let me repeat the process. Instead of starting with dropping the xn coordinate, if I start with dropping ith coordinate, that is initially whatever the space L we have considered, let me write this is space spanned by xi minus 1 to xi plus 1 to xn. Which element I have dropped here? Xi I have dropped, right now? And repeat the same process. What happens on the right then? Is it mod alpha into mod Ci into Ci?
Yes, ma'am.
I will write, instead of starting with, it will take some 5 to 10 minutes more. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
I will inform the next teacher also. Instead of starting with the space spanned by x1, x2 to xn minus 1, we can start with space spanned by. Anyhow, we want an n minus 1 dimensional space, no? You can drop any vector. So we can start with the space spanned by x1, x2 to xi minus 1 and xi plus 1. And let me continue this to xn. Which vector is dropped? Xi vector is correct. Then, with similar argument, with similar manner, In similar manner, if I arrive with the same inequality, the only changes. In similar manner, we can find some constant Ci greater than 0 such that. What such that? Same inequality we will write. Only right side is mod alpha I Ci. Right side is greater or equal by Ci into mod of alpha I, and now this I can be anything. 1 to n. Correct now? Or 1 to n minus x. Okay? And let me just give 5 minutes to complete the proof if you are okay with up to this inequality. Okay? Now let me start with an arbitrary norm, arbitrary vector. Hence, we can say for any x, which is the linear combination of I equals to 1 to n, alpha I, xi. The above holds? Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
If above holds, how many constants we were getting if I change the values of I equals to 1 to up to n, and n minus 1 values we will have, na? C1, C2. Okay. Therefore, may I say the statement is equally true for the minimum value as well? Minimum Ci. Okay. Why I am taking minimum Ci? Because I wanted to fix the scalar Ci on the right. Correct? For the above, I am going to write by minimum Ci. Norm alpha 1 x1, alpha 2 x2, so on up to alpha n xn. And is greater or equal by, is it true for minimum Ci? I and into mod alpha I as it is. Let me call it as statement number 8. Okay. Now again, it is true for each mod alpha, na? Means for each mod alpha it is true. Means above equation I will write. Means above equation is true for each alpha I. Okay. Therefore, may I say it is true for the maximum value also?
Yes, ma'am.
Why I am going to involve maximum? Because this is my norm zero definition. Okay. Therefore, I can write this as, is it norm x now? This left hand side. Arbitrary vector x, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Norm x is greater or equal by minimum Ci and maximum mod alpha. Okay, this minimum Ci I will call some m, and maximum mod alpha we know already this is norm 0. M means minimum of Ci, and what is norm 0 definition? Norm 0 of x. This is maximum mod alpha, right? Hence we have proved this is number 9 from 4 and 9. What can I write from 4 and 9? M norm 0 of x less than or equals to norm of x. Right now, and this is less than or equals to capital M into norm 0 of x. Hence, norm 0 is equivalent to norm, and I can say all norms are equivalent, which implies all norms on n-dimensional space or finite dimensional space, not only for n, for any n. All norms on finite dimensional space are equivalent. I hope there is no difficulty with the proof of this theorem. Okay, let me tell you in short. Okay, to prove all norms are equivalent, we have fixed out one norm initially, norm 0, and we have decided to show that it is equivalent to an arbitrary norm. That norm 0 we have fixed out to be maximum mod alpha. Whatever the scalars are used in the linear combination of the vector x, maximum among the scalar will be my norm, and we have checked out this is the norm by verifying the 4 conditions. Correct? Then later we have started with norm 0x definition. Okay, and we have proved the right part of the inequality. Now to prove the LHS of the same inequality, which inequality? M norm 0 of x less than or equals to norm of x less than or equals to capital M into norm 0. This we have shown as the right part very easily. To show the left side, we have started with a mathematical induction. We have proved the result is true for n equal to 1. We have assumed it is true for n minus 1. Okay. Then L is the space. We have taken with dimension n minus 1. Later we have shown this is closed. To prove this is closed, we have used completeness property. Then we have shown this L is complete. It becomes L is closed. Then we have taken a mapping L to xn plus L. As it is simply a translation, if L is closed, we have obtained xn plus L is closed. If xn plus L is closed, xn plus L complement becomes open. If complement becomes open, we have shown that this 0 belongs to xn plus L complement. To show 0 belongs to xn plus L complement, we have shown that 0 doesn't belongs to xn plus L. Correct? If 0 doesn't belongs to xn plus, surely it means 0 belongs to xn plus L complement. If 0 is in xn plus L complement, knowing it is open, means there exists some sphere with center 0, radius Cn in xn plus L complement. Okay. Therefore, if I take an arbitrary element in xn plus L, will it be in the sphere? No. Not in the sphere. Correct now? If it is not in the sphere, we can write norm x is greater or equal by Cn. Correct? Norm x is greater or equal by Cn. If norm x is greater or equal by Cn, then knowing this as a linear combination like this, okay, we have just adjusted a scalar alpha n here by replacing alpha I by alpha I upon alpha n. Okay, then we have obtained this inequality for some ith coordinate, dropping ith coordinate. We have obtained norm alpha 1 x1 to alpha 1 x1 to alpha n x1 greater or equal by ci mod alpha. Okay, then it is equally true for minimum ci and maximum. This becomes norm 0. This becomes some small m. This becomes norm x. Hence, we have proved the left part of the inequality as well. You have to remember the theme like this, how I have told you just now. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
There is no difficulty with the proof of the theorem. Actually, a proof is very interesting with some nice constructions. Okay? If you have any difficulty, you can ask me. Okay? No difficulties? Let us stop then. We are 10 minutes late. Therefore, I will ask the next teacher to start 10 minutes late. Okay? Let me stop. Thank you.